Hi, this is Terry. Welcome back to my channel. This week's topic, and I'm just going to give you a heads up, I'm going to be looking at notes today because it's pretty important, and it really is about responding to the events from this week. I am a verbal processor, and I've been trying to process through everything from the Georgia election results to what happened in DC and trying to certify the presidential election results, the insurrection, attempted coup in Washington, DC, the pro-Trump rioters, and then something else that happened with a client vendor yesterday, recording this Friday morning. And the situation is still volatile and there's still things that are happening. But before I get started on all of that, I just want to check in and ask how you're doing. If you're like me, this has been a very difficult week to concentrate. I was up very late watching the Georgia election returns on Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, and then was up very late Wednesday night and into Thursday morning watching what was happening in Washington, D.C. With Congress, and then with the certification of the presidential election. So if you've had a rough week, it's totally understandable. I hope that you have a chance to take care this weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about that towards the end as well, because even though we should be taking care of ourselves, we can't ignore what it is that is going on. So, and then before I even go further, I just want to do a special thank you to Stacey Abrams and all of the Black voters who turned out in Georgia, all of the activists who got new people registered to vote, and really made a difference for us and our country. Unfortunately, we're seeing that the 50-50 in the Senate isn't necessarily going to be a guarantee, but that's for another day. On Wednesday, I got up and decided to watch the certification of the presidential election with the counting of the electoral votes, and we knew that there were going to be some protests around that within the Republican Party, and got to Arizona, and that got started, separated out, and then watched what was happening outside of the Capitol building, and then the protesters that turned into the pro-Trump protesters that turned into protest rioters, who then assaulted the Capitol, and everything had to come to a screeching halt, and our elected officials had to go into hiding as the insurrectionists and the chaotic mob attempted to destroy our democracy and interrupt something that should have been really just a no-brainer and a non-event, and turned it into an event. I know that I watched helplessly. I was glued to the news. I was glued to Twitter most of the day. Once again, watching helplessly, just incredibly angry, because so many of us knew that this is where it was going to end up. They have been talking for months about doing this, and Trump incited this, and other Republicans incited this, and are complicit in this. I was hopeful as Congress got back into session about 8 o'clock. I was disgusted with the grandstanding that happened as they got through I guess it was the 2-hour time block for Arizona, and then resumed counting, and then watched as each state went through, knowing that there was going to be a protest with Pennsylvania. It was like, really? Did you not learn anything at all from earlier in the day? But then watch the grandstanding and the lies, and it was disgusting to watch what was happening, and the Republicans that are on board with the rioting that happened within the Capitol just hours earlier. It was just disgusting. Anyway, I stayed up and watched the rest of it, so that I could be assured that we had got through one more thing. It was so hard to watch the insanity and the play for power. So then yesterday, Thursday, I got on a call with a vendor. I'm doing a selection project for a client. we identified a lead candidate. The solution is better from my client's perspective, but we keep having trouble with this particular vendor in getting what it is that we need to complete the due diligence, do the contracts, do the planning. I mean, it's been like teeth pulling. So I finally got on a call with the president yesterday, who's based in St. Louis, and this is important because he is a boomer, cishet white man. And I joked about having some technology issues when we got on the call, and I was like, I hope this isn't going to be like yesterday. And he's like, what happened yesterday? I looked at him, I'm like, are you kidding? He goes, yeah, I don't watch the news. I'm like, you're not following what's going on? Did you not pay attention to the fact that there were riots and an insurrection and attempted coup in Washington, D.C.? And he goes, oh, well, we've had riots here. You know, he was basically like, you've seen one, you've seen them all. And I'm like, there's a difference between what you're probably, and I didn't say this, but what you're referring to in terms of the Black Lives Matter protest and the protest against the police brutality against the black people in our community, and an attempted coup in Washington, D.C., and an attack on our democracy. These are two different things. But what showed up in his privilege is basically, it was like, these are one and the same, and I don't have to pay attention to this, because he doesn't feel the pain. And this lack of empathy and this lack of understanding is abhorrent and reprehensible, and should not continue to be tolerated. How does this tie into what I'm talking about today?
And are you sure you should be talking about your clients like this in public?
Absolutely, because if I lose this, I'm going to talk to my client about this. I have 5 clients right now, so they're not going to know which one, and I've got multiple selection projects going on right now.
Based in what was it?
I don't really care. I don't care, because this cannot be tolerated. And the reason why it can't be tolerated is, for my client, we have enough other things that this vendor needs to be kicked to the curb. So that's not a problem. It's already been problematic. This is just the icing on the cake. But it's got me thinking about having the conversation with my clients about who they're doing business with. We have gotten on companies like Apple about working with manufacturers with inhumane practices. And what we need to do is put the pressure on other companies who are complicit in supporting systemic racism, and also any sort of continued support of the patriarchy, misogyny, sexism, and not recognizing that our society needs to shift. And I was having a conversation with another friend about this, because this is a client I'm willing to walk away from if they're not on board with rejecting this vendor. Not for this purpose, but for everything else. But all of it together, they need to be rejected. Because, and my friend basically said, your client is hiring you because you provide a different perspective, a more complete perspective on doing business with a particular vendor, going into partnership with this vendor, who, if they are not empathetic to what is going on as a society, how are they going to be empathetic to the needs of your client? And we've already seen that. And during the call yesterday, I was basically being our requests for our due diligence process were basically being dismissed, and we were being told, nobody else asked for this, what you're asking for is unreasonable. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I have never encountered the resistance that I have encountered with this, like I have with this particular vendor. So I know that this is kind of like the dating period, and if you encounter things in the selection process and the contract negotiations, this is the dating process. You know that the marriage, when you get under contract, is not going to get any better, because you lose your leverage. And so now is the time to call it. So if my client doesn't see this, I'm willing to walk away from it. And this is part of the action that I'm going to continue to take, is being even more intentional about who I'm willing to do business with and who I'm willing to recommend to my clients. It's going to mean extra work in order to do it, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I think all of us need to step up in this. Once again, this isn't about politics, this is about signal. This is about how a company is going to behave when things get tough, and oftentimes projects do get tough, whether it's with an implementation or something that goes sideways during the normal operation of a system. And I think this is one of those things that we need to be paying attention to as additional signal in terms of who they're potentially hiring, and how they go about their business. And so I guess I'm taking a look at this as kind of a broader perspective in terms of how people operate in the world, and making sure that I am paying attention to the companies that I'm either recommending or interacting with, and making sure that their broader values are in alignment. Once again, after I saw the movie Blood Diamond, I wouldn't even get diamonds because I didn't know that I could trust that it wasn't coming from places, and if you haven't seen the movie, it's atrocious. And I didn't want to potentially support that because it's absolutely inhumane. And same thing with some of the manufacturing practices that we've seen in other countries. We need to make sure that we're not supporting those, and I'm going to extend it to service businesses or software businesses, that we need to think in terms of the humanity and the values that we want to support in our society.
I feel like it's also important to note that someone's budget, your budget does come into play, because oftentimes it's cheaper to get things that are not necessarily produced or
humanely produced, or whether it's organic foods when you're thinking about the environment, or you have to think in terms of the budget. The clients that I'm dealing with, budget is not a factor.
I understand that. This is more on an individual level.
Yeah. So my dilemma is, how am I going to communicate this to my clients? And as I said, I'm willing to walk away from the engagement. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm going to be able to position this as Signal and what they'll be like as a business partner. I've worked with some of these folks for many years. They know and trust me. So I don't see that as a problem. Anyway, let's see, I've gone through that. And it's just, it goes back to, thinking in terms of moving forward, what has been tolerated before versus what we're going to tolerate moving forward. So now what? Well, we can't really ignore this. We need to continue to put pressure on those who support Trump and the insurrection and the violation of our democracy and our democratic processes. We cannot let this go. We need to take away their oxygen by supporting those who are aligned with humane, equitable, democratic processes. And if you are white and privileged like me, but have been avoiding the news because it's uncomfortable, you need to step up. You need to step away from your privilege of avoiding that discomfort and pay attention. Otherwise, you're going to be complicit. And I know that's probably incredibly uncomfortable, and this is going to piss some people off. I'll lose some subscribers, whatever. I don't really care. If you are not paying attention and you are choosing to bury your head in the sand, and I'm not talking like a 24-hour social media detox or stepping away for a short period of time. I'm talking about intentionally avoiding the news because it's uncomfortable and you can only focus on so much. Then basically you are signaling the type of person and that you're allowing this to happen because it's uncomfortable for you to pay attention and take action. If you're not mad, get mad. And start to think about what you can do to be intentional about how you operate in the world. Do not sit idly by. Be intentional about who you are buying from and who you are interacting with. And get uncomfortable with challenging the people in your circle who are continuing to support Trump and the Republicans who are supporting this insurrection and this attempted coup and allowing and enabling this kind of behavior. These are fanatics who are supporting him and what's going on, and we're not done. We haven't gotten through the inauguration. We've already heard rumblings about there potentially being other probably violent demonstrations on the 19th and the 20th of January. And then since we have seen that 70 million people voted for Trump, this means that this problem is not going to go away, and we are going to have to be doing what we can in order to be a part of the solution and not be complicit in the problem, because this really has to stop. So if you got this far, thank you so much for watching. As you can tell, as a verbal processor, I'm still thinking through this. I don't have all the answers. I am very upset about this, and continuing to try to think about how I can be a part of the solution and not and help others be part of the solution and not be complicit and be part of the problem, which I probably couldn't be accused of. But this requires not only diligence, but what's the word? We need to be aware. What's the word? I can't remember what that word is.
Awareness.
It's an awareness, but it's a step above that. If you know what the word is, put it in the comments. So please take care of yourself this weekend. Recharge. We're in it for the long haul because we still have the pandemic that's going on. Everything's not going to be magically better on when Biden and Harris get sworn in. We'll have steps towards recovery, but we've got a long road ahead of us in the U.S. And all eyes are on us in other countries, and there are some very nervous people in other countries. And I really thank my friends in France and Poland, Zoe Men and Warner. Thanks for reaching out and checking to see how I'm doing. I'm sorry that some of you are struggling as well in light of everything that's been going on. So with that, you want to add anything?
You said it pretty well.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. I might write a blog post just to try to get my thoughts out there and just have a different way of processing all of this and figuring out how to move forward. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you like this, please like it below. If you think other people need to hear this, whether they want to or not, go ahead and share it with them. I may get heat from this, but I don't fucking care. So with that, talking about taking some risks. So take some risks, let go of perfection. And even in light of all of this, above all else, have some fun.